Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, I'm very excited to be talking to Greg Mahler. Greg, thank you so much for accepting my invite. Can you share a little bit of your bio so people can know about your transformation, which is the main reason that I wanted to reach out, and then we'll dive deeper into the low carb and the health and the fitness stuff.
Yes, you bet. First off, thank you so much for having me on this call. I appreciate the opportunity. And just a little bit about myself, kind of a surface level overview. I'm a natural ketogenic bodybuilder. I'm also a ketogenic nutrition coach. I'm a certified personal trainer. I work in the ketogenic space physically and online, and I coach people all over the world. I was not always a healthy guy. In fact, I was overweight. I was a smoker, used to chain smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day for over a decade. I used to drink, stay up late, not watch what I ate, not work out, kind of just the typical standard American lifestyle. And fast forward to today, and I've been in a ketogenic lifestyle for 10 plus years. Never felt better, never slept better, looked better. I mean, all that kind of stuff that just goes along with changing your diet and your lifestyle. And I help people do the same. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm sure we'll kind of dig a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah. What was the main impetus trigger that made you change and transform your body? Because I do see those pictures. I'll make sure I'll pull them up here so people can see the massive transformation that you went through. And that was physical, but I'm sure the mental part was equally, if not more powerful. So what was the trigger for that?
Yeah, so if we go back to like the 2013, the year 2013 and previous, I was an unhealthy guy. I actually worked in the bar and restaurant scene, so I was staying up late, kind of with that type of employee, staying up late, not watching what I ate. I was a smoker. I would stay up, have a few drinks, be the night owl, if you want to call it, and was just really kind of not feeling all the best. And started working out with a little bit more intensity, and happened to be invited to compete in a local bodybuilding competition. This was in 2013, and had never done anything before. So I enlisted the help of a nutrition coach at the time. I went through the prep protocol. This was prior to me in engaging into anything ketogenic. So this was a standard or really conventional prep protocol that was carb based and all that kind of stuff.
Six
And
meals a
that,
day and all that.
yeah, exactly. Looking back on it now, I'm like, man, that is just, it's brutal. Like 6 meals a day, you bring your food everywhere you go. It's like chicken, rice, broccoli, asparagus, steamed tilapia, no seasoning, no salt, just
No
terrible.
salt.
No, I
Wow.
mean, very minimal
Yeah.
sodium. That was one of the things that we were supposed to watch, and
Yeah.
hydration and all that kind of stuff. And it was towards the end of that preparation protocol, it was miserable. In fact, several times I would wake up in the morning and find wrappers from protein bars on my counter because I would wake up in the night, not even realizing it, and I would eat in my sleep because I was so deprived. The hunger would literally wake me up. It was so bad.
Wow.
And that in itself started to turn into a poor relationship with food and kind of a disordered way of eating. Anyways, went through the prep, enjoyed it, thought it was cool. Came out of that prep after those competitions. I did 3 or 4, if I remember correctly, and really failed at a proper reverse diet protocol back into a maintenance period. So I gained a bunch of weight, hated the way I felt, hated the way I looked, didn't know what the heck was going on. I didn't have really much nutritional knowledge at that time, and started just experimenting and implementing things on my own just to see how I would feel because I didn't want to gain 20 more pounds. And did I determine that I was feeling the best and performing the best with a lower carb intake? 20 to 40 grams of carbs per day kind of put me in my sweet spot. I felt good. I still had energy to do things. I didn't keep gaining weight. And the gym was awesome.
Were you
So
testing ketones at that point? 20 to
no,
40.
actually, this was 10 years ago before I knew anything about keto. Like I kind of just stumbled into it without realizing that it was what it was. There was nobody to ask questions. There was no social media keto people. There was no ketogenic products on the store shelves. There was no articles, books. I didn't have any of that. And this was 2013, 2014.
Mm.
So I found that it worked really good. Kept going, kept trying to figure out what is this magic that I'm encountering? Like, what is going on here? And played with targeted keto, which
Mhm.
is where you're going to have your carb intake pre or post workout, kind of surrounding your exercise. I also played with cyclical keto, which is where you have like a refeed day or 2 days, maybe once a week or once a month or whatever. So it's kind of like a cycle. And then just found that I really, really thrived in just a kind of straightforward ketogenic approach. So I've been doing that for 10 years, and um, the gym works great, muscle building works great, energy is amazing. I mean, everything that's keto or carnivore related, you've probably seen all that stuff yourself and experienced that stuff yourself, but it's exponential. Yep.
So the main trigger was you kind of just were fed up, right? With just being unhealthy and kind of just going through the motions, right? And was it after you started competing that you got your certification and decided that you wanted also this to be your career?
Yeah. Yep. I dabbled with a little bit of unofficial personal training kind of in that same time period, but then did become certified, did do some hands-on personal training for several years, and really loved coaching people with the nutritional approach online. And it was just kind of turned into a passion, turned into
Yeah.
I'm going to help people feel the way I feel because I transformed my life. And if I can do that do the same thing for other people, then
Yeah.
it's definitely rewarding.
And right now, what is it that you're mainly doing career-wise?
Recently joined forces with Robert Sykes. He's a ketogenic bodybuilder and coach himself. He actually coached me through my first ketogenic competition prep not too many years ago. So I work alongside him in all aspects of all of his businesses. I
Mm-hmm.
also work nutritional coaching worldwide on the side, but it's also part of his businesses. So I do that alongside him and also kind of secondarily um, on the side of that as well.
Yeah, I interviewed Robert Sykes. I'll try to link it at the end of this interview if people want to check that out. And he's like a pioneer really in bodybuilding using specific ketogenic macros. So he knows all the ins and outs. That's his thing. So it makes total sense how you were able to get so much success with that, and be able to maintain that. Because yeah, people can lose weight on a traditional bro
Mhm.
competition diet, but then it's very rare that they can sustain that, right?
Yes, yep. And usually you have to reverse your way back out of that. And either
That's
way, whether
hard.
it's ketogenic or not, you should still reverse out of that properly. But yeah,
True.
it's brutal when you're focusing on carbohydrates as your primary energy source. It's totally different. Yeah.
How much easier? Because I know I've gone through those processes as well, and I find that reversing on keto is infinitely easier. It's insanely easier. You can ramp up those calories so much faster. Like, it's wild to me what a stark difference there is. And it also makes me think of all of these bodybuilders and competitors. Like, how could they not have figured that one out yet? Why do they have to struggle so much with the traditional reverse?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's just the stigma that surrounds the absence of carbs in bodybuilding or exercise in general is so strong that many people don't want to have an open mind. I think
Yeah.
they're just really stuck in that one lane of traffic.
Yeah, it takes time. And this kind of stuff that we're doing right now, those interviews and spreading the information and the content that we put out and your amazing content as well. Do you have a YouTube channel? Because I know I've been over your Instagram. I'm not sure if you have a YouTube.
I don't have a YouTube. No, I haven't never really dove into that one yet. Maybe at some point.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure at some point you'll probably, because then it allows you to go more in depth, into the topics. And also just in terms of impact and spreading the message, I noticed that conversion is so much more powerful with my YouTube content, which is why if you notice, like right now on my Instagram, I barely even post. I should post more, but I'm focused a lot more on YouTube because just running the analytics and the conversions, and it's just people connect with you, they understand what you're talking about a lot more easily than just a picture and a caption.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Good to know. I'll definitely have to dig into that. Maybe 2025.
Yeah, huge difference. Totally.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your family's reaction and your friends as well to that transformation. How was that process?
Um, it was a slow and steady transformation. So it wasn't like some crazy reveal to the people that were in my close circle. It's definitely more impressive to those who haven't seen me in person, I guess you should say, when you have a side by side. My friends and family, they're always asking me questions. Hey, what do you think about this? How do I do this? Hey, I'm thinking about doing keto. What do you recommend for, this approach or that approach? Or do you take supplements and do you do this? And
Right.
so I'm kind of like, I kind of field all their questions. I think they see the success or the transformation in itself and they feel like they can ask for advice. And I'm totally down to always give advice. I'm an open book, more than welcome to help somebody if it can make them happier, healthier, live longer. Totally.
Yeah, it feels really nice when you feel that people are genuinely asking you because they really. So a lot of times they'll ask, but they don't really want to do it. But at some
Yeah.
point, you know,
Yeah.
and you develop that intuition, I think, over time, and you start to know, like, oh, they just want to make conversation. They just want to talk, small talk. But I know they're not going to do anything. They're not ready. They're not ready for it yet. But over time, as you gonna develop that intuition and you know who's ready and who's not, you start to give them more in-depth information,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
When you say they're not ready, that is totally spot on because they're like testing the waters. Hey, do you think I could do this? Do you think I could do that? And they still have some objections in their brain they're trying to work through.
Yeah.
And when they do become ready or they do hit rock bottom or they do realize they need to make a change,
Yeah.
then at least those seeds have been planted and they know that
Yeah.
it's possible. Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Do you think that hitting rock bottom is a prerequisite for people to make that transformation?
Gosh, that's probably the strongest natural way to get somebody to make a change. Um, because I could tell somebody a million times, hey, you really should stop smoking. Hey, smoking's terrible. Hey, this, hey, that. And myself, for example, when I stopped smoking, I used to smoke 2 packs a day for 10 years straight. I woke up one morning, had just a killer hangover, probably had eaten a bunch of junk the night before that I wouldn't have approved of. And I felt like I was miserable that morning. And I looked at my pack of cigarettes, and I would usually wake up in the morning and go have a cigarette, like most smokers would do. And I looked at it and I crumpled it up, threw it in the garbage can, and haven't smoked since. So for me, that was, I
Wow.
don't know if it was rock bottom, but it was really a turning point. Like, man, what are you doing with your life? You are like, this is just no way to live. This is miserable. And for me, that was enough to kind of kickstart a different direction. I think the people who do encounter something like that have much more of a driven mindset than those who don't really like they want to make a change, but they don't want to change. They want to change, but they don't want to change. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, I think rock bottom, it helps a lot of people make that change.
Did you take nicotine replacement or you just went cold turkey?
I was a cold turkey. Yeah, I had tried the gums and some other things earlier, several years prior to that, and I always just found myself back smoking. I think a lot of it was the mentality, a lot of it was the environment, still going to the bar, still hanging out late at night, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I distanced myself from all that and just cold turkey, no more. And it was brutal. I mean, there's definitely some withdrawals and some headaches and stuff that you have to work through, but I just stuck to it.
And how long did the withdrawals last?
Gosh, I don't remember. It was probably too long. It was not fun, but it was looking back on it, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Okay, let's dive a little bit. Actually, no, before that. I want to double down on the family and friends reactions. Um, in the beginning, sometimes when you're making a massive transformation and kind of separating from the pack, and especially that it was a little bit slower, they
Hmm.
don't feel it as much. But once it is undeniable that now you have six-pack abs, you've completely transformed your career, you've really separated, and now your mere existence around them highlights the fact that they're not going after their potential. There has to be some resistance. There has to be some remarks. There has to be some tension that they try to pretend does not exist. How do you deal with that?
That's a good question. That is a solid. question. I try not to be judgmental in any way. Just available for any questions or comments that they have. I hang out with my friends on occasion. I've since moved, so I don't have my friends here local to me, but I do have them back home. And when we hang out, I don't care if they're eating the same type of thing I'm eating. I don't care if they're eating junk. I don't care if they're drinking soda. But if they ever have questions or they ever want to try and better themselves, I'm an open book. They can ask. I'll be happy to offer advice. Um, Part of me wants to say, hey, like you don't have to drink the soda. Hey, you don't have to eat all the mashed potatoes with syrup or whatever their, choices might be. But I don't. I just do my thing. It works for me. If they want it to work for them, they can ask. I can offer some help, some guidance.
Yeah, I understand that so much. And it's not just like with fitness, it's also with entrepreneurship and leveling up in your career and having ambition and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I've learned a long time ago, never ever offer unsolicited advice. Number one,
Hmm.
they're not going to do it because if they didn't come to you, they're not even close to being ready to doing that. Number two, they're gonna start having even more attention when they want to come and visit, and it's not a good situation. So yeah, I agree. Just if they ask, then great. Now sometimes it's inevitable. Like we have kind of this push that sometimes we say something or we mention a topic that does not it's kind of like going about it in a roundabout way. Just by saying it, it's gonna trigger them to think about it,
Hmm.
or push them at least one stage further in the transformational steps. Can you hear my dog, by the way, barking in the background? Because I can go
Yeah, just a little bit, but that's okay.
just a little bit. Okay. Sometimes because I can hear it more and I worry and I have to edit it out. But then when I go and I listen to it, the mic just picks up my voice. So hopefully this is happening right now. If not, I'll deal with it. So anyway, it's hard. It's hard because then you feel like you almost have to not exist. You almost have to kind of hide everything about you at some point. Because at some point, the bigger you get, whether it's with health, whether it's with career or multiple things at the same time, um, it's inevitable, it's undeniable,
Mhm.
right? And so you have to work even harder to kind of dim your light in a way. Anyway, so some of the things that I think about.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it
I
could be
totally get
wrong,
it. Yep.
but
I just try to lead by example and be there and approachable, not put up this facade or this wall that feels like they're not comfortable asking questions. So maybe I'll plant a seed here and there and, try not to offer any unsolicited advice, but just be there and,
yeah,
just
yeah,
do your own thing and they'll ask if they want to ask. So
yeah. And talk about things that are more fun, like movies and
yeah,
weather, games.
exactly.
That's what I
Yep.
do.
Yep. Yep.
I know, I get it. Okay. Let's talk more in depth about your current meal plan. I was checking your stories this morning. You're basically had a carnivore spread, but I know you're not strictly carnivore. So what does your current meal plan look like?
It's a lot of carnivore style eating. I'll be actually kicking off a competition prep here in January. So my meal plan is going to be really, really dialed in, really, really strategic. Macros are going to be 100% calculated in advance every single week. And my meals typically will be meat, poultry, fish, cheese, dairy, animal fats, eggs. That's the majority of everything. There might be a little bit of vegetation or berries in there, but nothing really of starchy carb content. I think keto brick is one of the things that I incorporate in there. And I know January is World Carnivore Month, so I like to do carnivore and keto brick. So that's kind of like what I did the last few years, and that's about it. A lot of water, a lot of electrolytes, creatine, not much for supplementation. Just that's it. Very basic.
Creatine and electrolytes. Do you have a specific electrolyte brand that you like?
I've been a huge fan of Redmond Relight. They have several varieties of their electrolyte blend. They've got a caffeinated version, they've got unflavored versions, they've got a pre-workout, they've got all kinds of
Yeah.
different goodies. Yeah.
And so creatine, electrolyte supplementation, caffeine.
Yeah, there's in their pre-workout, there's I think 150 milligrams caffeine in that. I'll still probably drink some coffee with heavy whipping cream. So a
Right.
cup of coffee in the morning, maybe 150 milligrams caffeine via pre-workout. That's about it as far as caffeine content.
Artificial sweeteners.
Minimal. Try to stick to stevia, monk fruit, allulose, and try to avoid like the sucralose and those kind of things.
Would you say you had a food addiction before the transformation?
Oh, probably 100%. Yeah. I used
Mm,
to, way back many years ago, I worked at a car dealership as a sales associate, and I can remember going to that vending machine out in the service lobby, and that was the source of many of my meals, and they were just terrible. And whether I was hungry or not, I would walk out there and I'd get something to eat. Boredom, you're dealing with emotional eating, all these different tendencies to just eat when you're not even hungry. It's
yeah.
it's an addiction. It's just a terrible problem.
I love that you mentioned that because it just shows how you can gain control back of your eating and your health and your fitness and happiness and all that kind of stuff without having to be 1,000% strict carnivore. Because sometimes people think, wow, if I'm a sugar addict, then that means I'll never be able to taste even something sweet. And now, if I get sick, the cough syrup has sweetener, and so if you already have this mentality so rigid, you have to take the cough syrup, and it's like, oh, it's too late. I'm an addict, and I had the drug, and so now it's a binge, and they fall off track. And so this rigid all or nothing thinking sometimes can make people really fall off track more easily. And I love to showcase that there are so many different ways that you can do it, and you have to know yourself and figure out which route you want to take because it's not just one solution. Some people have to go 100%
hmm
strict, not ever even tasting something remotely sweet, and other people, such as yourself, and a lot of other people that I have interviewed as well, with serious food addictions, sugar addictions, can completely transform their lives and be in complete control and be healthy and fit and everything you want and still have those sweeteners here and there and the electrolyte packets and so it's
Yep.
very, I think, empowering to know that it can be done.
Absolutely. I think it's all personal. You have to recognize some people can eat one piece of candy and be totally fine, and some people can eat one piece of candy and pretty soon they're just raiding the cupboards.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some it's personalized for each person. So you have
Yeah.
to understand what yourself needs.
1000%. Exactly. Okay, so those are the supplements, the caffeine, the creatine. Do you cycle on and off the creatine?
I don't. Way back when I started, there was kind of a little bit different mentality, a little bit different approach to creatine, and you had to load the creatine. You had to go through
Right,
a loading phase, and cycle in and out of it several
right.
weeks, and all that kind of thing. I think I've been taking the same scoop of the same creatine for 20 plus years now, and it's always the same time of the day, 5 to 8 grams per day,
Hmm.
whether I work out or not. I just keep it saturated. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Um, do you go through cravings, struggles, and what do you do in those moments where you're craving something when you know you shouldn't be eating, especially now that you're gonna have to compete soon? Um, and what is like the mindset behind doing the work that is required? And also when you're not motivated to work out and you know you still have that workout that needs to get done.
Yeah, motivation definitely fluctuates, definitely changes day to day, especially as you get deeper and deeper into a competition prep when you're eating less food, maybe have some additional stressors on the body, on the mind, and the last thing you want to do is go work out and exert a whole bunch of energy. So that's where dedication kicks in. You got to just stick to the plan, trust the plan, know that it's going to work. Try not to beat yourself up too hard while you're doing it, but just be proud of yourself after you do it.
Mm,
And um, as far as cravings, I don't really deal with much for cravings anymore now, being totally fat adapted and in a ketogenic state for so long. You do find yourself dealing with emotional cravings, or you're maybe hungry because you're bored, or you got a little bit of anxiety going in the brain, or you're lonely, or something in the world isn't going how you think it should be going. So you sometimes feel like you're going to turn to the refrigerator, or you're going to eat something just to try to satisfy that unknown imbalance. But for me, what works, if the weather is appropriate, I'll go outside and go for a walk. If I feel those cravings or those tendencies kind of coming into my brain, I'll just grab my two dogs and we'll just go walk around the block for a little while. If it doesn't go away, we'll keep walking. If it's raining or it's not good outside, I'll just hop in the car, go to the gym, and I'll just even just walk on the treadmill or just go there and do something exertion wise just to deal with that. And then before you know it, those cravings or those tendencies are gone.
Yeah, they usually last around like 20 minutes. Sometimes it lasts longer. I know like doctors and me, sometimes I'll say that stats. It just takes 20 minutes. Like, no, sometimes it takes hours. And
Yeah.
you just, right? And sometimes you just have to realize what is happening, this feeling of tension, which is the craving for reaching out for something sweet or something outside of your plan. And just the awareness of it is the first step. And
Hmm.
then realizing that this is how you grow. It's the tension, it's time under tension. Just you can't grow a muscle without putting enough tension for a specific number of time on it for it to grow. It's the same thing with diet, it's the same thing with forcing yourself to work on a project when you just really don't feel like it. You know, it's all of it is the same. We have a very easy time understanding, oh yeah, of course, tension, discomfort is the only way you grow a muscle, but people struggle, including myself for a long time. I struggled to make that connection between between that process and applying it to every other area of my life, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, just like progressive overload in the gym,
Yeah.
where you're continuously pushing that upper threshold. The same goes with other emotions, other feelings, other stressors in life. And yeah, you just
Yeah.
that's where you grow, that's where you grow, that's where you progress, is you're not in the comfort zone.
1000%. There is no growth in the comfort zone. One of the ways initially when I was making those changes is I would create an Excel sheet and I would write down the number of minutes and hours sometimes that I would be pushing through that feeling of no motivation and cravings and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't act on it and I did what I had to do anyway. And over time, the amount of time that I could spend in that uncomfortable situation started getting longer and longer and longer. And before you know it, you just adapt.
Wow, that's cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I like numbers and I like data. And so that for my brain, that worked. And also raising baseline dopamine, I talk a lot about that, how the faster you can run, the more weights you can lift. And some people, if they can work out, the more they can visualize all those things over time raise baseline dopamine, and it increases not just dopamine machinery in your brain, but or the amount of dopamine you can release, but also the receptors for dopamine. So now you have more D2 receptors, that specific receptor that we have studied for so long in addiction. That's the root cause of the cravings. When you don't have enough D2 receptors, you go through all of the feelings and the low motivation and all that kind of stuff. And so that was a topic of my dissertation I was telling you earlier, right?
Hmm.
That's what I studied for 6 or 7 years. Just how can we repair the damage to the brain by increasing the number of D2 receptors? And so I think that was another central element. Like to this day, that's I obsess over that, and I'm constantly pushing to raise it higher and higher. See, like, how high can I raise it? Can I get to running, let's say, 10 or 15 miles an hour? And of course I can. It's just going to take time. Did you know that Cristiano Ronaldo, he clocks in at around like, I think 23 miles an hour. That's his speed.
Wow, that is crazy. Holy
Imagine
cow.
his baseline dopamine. He's limitless, because as you increase the power and the as you increase the potential of your brain, as you increase the strength of the brain, or actually I should say the opposite way. As you get faster, a faster body, a stronger body also means the brain has to match it, right? Because the central command is coming from the brain down
Sure.
to the body, right? So as you train the body, you're also training the brain. And as the brain gets stronger and it expands and it gets more powerful and you increase your pain threshold, imagine how that can translate into creativity,
Hmm.
business ideas, discipline. You become like a machine. Anything you want, you know with certainty that you can do it because your pain threshold is so high. So you're not going to stop because there's not enough pain stimulus that can override that.
Sure. Yeah. That's why everyone says do hard things.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
it. That's it. And the more you can do it, and the thing is that I resisted that even though I had studied it, I kind of almost came up with the whole thing with my dissertation. I don't know if anybody else has done that. I think David Goggins has done it, but not understanding the science with it. He just understood like running calluses the brain. And I didn't understand what I was doing. I just knew that I was struggling with sugar addiction. And so what was going to be the topic of my dissertation? So I did it that way, and I understood the science. I studied the science. I came up with it, but it didn't click for me. I still didn't apply it on myself for a while.
Sure. Yeah.
you know. Um,
It's very fascinating. Absolutely. When you start digging into all that stuff.
I love that stuff so much. I'm like, every day I listen to David Goggins. It's like I wake up and I get my morning run, and of course, I don't feel like it. So I put David Goggins. You know, he has a great interview with Andrew Huberman. It came out January 1st of this year. Gosh, it is so powerful. I make every single client of mine when they're ready. I don't like to freak them out from
I'll
day
have to
one.
listen to that one.
Oh, it's the best thing you will ever. I listen to it every single day over and over and over again. I don't know how many times I've listened to that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's like an obsession. So I can
That's a
get
good that's a
very
good obsession.
intense.
Yeah.
So anyway, um, I s- the, I really struggle to understand and absorb and finally relent and do the work because for me, it was so painful to do all these changes. I didn't have um, like a solid support system growing up. I didn't have like all the habits were all messed up, just growing up in survival mode in Lebanon. Um, it was like all I had was sugar, you know?
Hmm.
So this is why it is so important for people to make that transition, right? The same way you can't grow a muscle without some level of discomfort. It's the same thing with every other habit. And the thing that I know I took me a while to understand, and I think why a lot of people resist this idea is because they think it's going to be like that forever. I'm going to be uncomfortable forever.
Hmm.
And no, it's only initially. And that's a beautiful part, right? Just like you pick up a very heavy dumbbell, it's going to feel really heavy the first few times you do it, but then the muscle adapts and it gets stronger. And the next time you pick up this dumbbell, it's easy, right? And it's the same thing with changing your habits. It's the same thing with changing your meals and overriding and craving. The first few times you're going to go through that craving is going to feel almost impossible to overcome, but just know that no, you're growing. You actually netted a positive from just resisting it because the next time it's not going to be as hard and the next time even easier until we get to a place where you're at where you're telling me you don't even have cravings most of the time. I mean, how amazing it is to reach that point.
Yes, I agree. I like to tell people, it's progress over perfection. If you try to overhaul your entire life in one fell swoop, it's not going to be sustainable. But if you take little steps along the way, like you're saying you'd lift up a heavy dumbbell and you work with that dumbbell, eventually that dumbbell is going to get easier to work with, and you're going to grab the next heavier dumbbell and you start doing the same thing with that one. So as you progress through whatever life changes you're trying to progress through, don't feel overwhelmed by the end result. Just one day at a time, one little step at a time. Maybe you're going to remove a certain type of food from your diet just a little bit at a time, or you're going to drink one less can of soda a day or one less serving of cereal a day. You don't have to completely do everything all at once. And that's the key right there. Progress over
Oh,
perfection.
I love that so much. It has helped my clients so much, that specific mindset, right? You don't
Hmm.
have to, not everybody has to go from whatever they're eating to like strict nothing but meat.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because that's not sustainable for the majority of people. And that's crazy. And they're going to have cravings and they're going to fall right back off and they're going to go back to their old way of eating because it's
Yes.
it's crazy. Yep. But if you do it
Yeah.
slowly, it's way better.
I agree. I feel like for the vast majority of people, this works so much better. I'm not denying that for some people it works. So there are certain personalities where they have to do it overnight, and that's fantastic. But I find that that's the minority of the population. The vast majority, if you can just push them into changing exactly what you said, one thing, one swap, right? I think the biggest thing is just go from carbs to keto because there's nothing that you can't have in a ketogenic way. You can have pizza that's keto. You can have all those things that are keto. And if you just do that, you're going to feel amazing. And then we start cleaning up the diet more, And then if you
Hmm.
want to go complete carnivore, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yep. Because I was never fully clean eating. I'd have setbacks, I'd have cravings, I'd have binge sessions, I'd have all kinds of stuff along the way. I don't have them anymore because I just worked through them and I learned through them. Hey, why are you eating this? Why are you raiding the refrigerator? Stop and think about it. What's the emotional connection? Okay, now next time that happens, give it some more thought, go outside, go for a walk, and then you end up getting stronger and building that resilience.
I love that you mentioned that. For me, same thing. The binges started getting less intense, less terrible. And I think the biggest tip I can give people who struggle with binge eating is track everything. Even if you feel you were completely out of control, and that's what I
Hmm.
would do. Like I would have 4,000 calorie binges. Can you imagine? I'm 5 feet tall. I'm a tiny human. Can you imagine that kind of calories over time? But I tracked it. I put it all on my fitness pal. And then the next time I would have it, because I was putting all those changes in place, right? So raising my
Hmm.
baseline dopamine and working on my mindset. And then so the next time the binges were happening, it was then 3,000 calories and it was 2,000. And now I cannot remember the last time I had a binge. It's like I cannot even imagine myself 10 years ago hearing myself speak right now that I don't have those binges. It felt something insurmountable to me.
Yeah, I agree. And tracking it, that's key.
Yeah.
That's taking ownership of it. And that's like tomorrow you're gonna have to understand that you did that and try to prevent it next time.
Yes. Love all of this stuff. Okay. What about your exercise plan?
I hit the gym and do resistance training, weight training, 6 to 7 days a week. I kind of just sprinkle in an off day when my body tells me it's time for one. I don't have them necessarily prescribed or pre-planned, and minimal amount of cardio. And as we get further and further into the prep protocol, cardio will start to show up kind of towards the end. Minimal amount of cardio necessary to make progress, and just hit the weights. So I like to train with high intensity. That might mean being really heavy with one training session and a little bit more volume and less heavy the next one. So I kind of dabble in and out of that.
Hmm.
Yep.
What do you do for recovery?
Sleep. That's key. I know a lot of people don't they overlook and undervalue sleep. Sleep is phenomenal. That you can there's no replacement for sleep. Sleep is
Yeah.
key. Hydration, electrolytes, sleep, stretching, that kind of stuff. Massage. You usually try to get deep tissue massage once a month or every 6 weeks, give or take. That's key as well. Just kind of keep everything loosened up and ready to go.
What time do you wake up in the morning?
I'm usually up at 3:30 in the morning.
And what time do
So
you
like
go to sleep?
I try to go to bed around 8 and fall asleep between 8:30 and 9ish. Up at 3:30, usually hit the gym at 4:30 or 5 every morning. So that way, no matter what the day throws at me, my gym is done.
I love that you said that because for me, my life didn't truly transform until this became a non-negotiable. Waking up early, more importantly, going to sleep early
Hmm.
because if you just force yourself to wake up early and you stay up late, you're only gonna last 2 days before your brain is fried and your body you just can't handle that anymore.
Absolutely. Yep. Non-negotiable. That is it right there. That's an appointment with myself that I'm not going to break. So
Hmm. And when on those mornings where you're just so tempted to hit the snooze button, what do you do?
drag my ass out of bed. Those are the days where you might not have 100% to give at the gym. You might have 70% to give at the gym, but if you go and you give all that 70% at the gym, you technically gave it 100%. So you still got to do it. The motivation is not a constant.
No, no, you're never gonna be motivated more than a few days in a row. if you're
Hmm.
lucky, maybe 7 days. I don't think I've ever had this 7 days in a row when I'm completely motivated every single day. You just have to learn to push through, and then you get that muscle of pushing through, that discipline, that consistency, that dedication, that muscle grows, and then it doesn't feel as painful anymore, and then it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah. And the first time you don't feel like working out, but you push through and you do go work out, you're going to remember like, wow, I really am happy that I decided to go and work out. So next time you don't have that motivation, you're going to remember that previous time. Wow, it was really worth it that time. I bet it would be worth it this time. And the more and more that you repeat that and the more and more that becomes consistent, it just turns into a habit that you just don't waver from.
Love that. Do you feel that the amount of sleep that your body needs has changed over time, before versus after your transformation?
Oh, that's a good question. I never really used to value sleep. And now if I can squeeze in a Sunday afternoon nap, I will totally squeeze in a Sunday afternoon nap, because your body is just saying, "Hey, we need a little bit of rest from you." So I think, well, I think the quality of sleep that I'm getting now is much more there.
Mm,
It's a deeper quality sleep. It's more of a recovery sleep. And
mm,
before, without working out and needing the sleep, it was more just sleep to sleep, I guess, if that makes any sense.
yeah.
Um, I probably get more hours per evening on average now just because I try to. And before I didn't used to try to sleep. I'd stay up late and fall asleep when I fell asleep and then get up, sleep half the day away and, it wasn't to value.
Yes. Okay. Um, do you listen to audiobooks? Do you have specific podcasts? Do you do that kind of work?
I listen to like Robert Sykes has got an awesome podcast. He's got a whole variety of people on there. I listen to his on occasion. Other than that, I don't do a whole lot of audio. Let's see, there was one I was just listening to the other day. Shoot, I don't remember who it was. Um, I'll dabble in any of like the nutrition, the ketogenic space, the nutrition space, and just random authors. When they pop up on social media, I'll definitely give those a listen. Some of the people that are in the carnivore and keto social media space.
Yeah. I forgot to ask you if you test for ketones.
On occasion, I do. Um, I don't on a regular basis. I will probably do a little bit of intermittent testing during this competition prep, just to kind of see how things are being affected. But early on in my ketogenic state or in my ketogenic journey, I used to test all the time and I used to chase ketones. And I will tell you, that can kind of throw you off when you're trying to chase ketones because, as many people know, they do vary throughout the day. They vary depending on hydration level, they vary depending on um, exercising, they depend, sleep, all that kind of stuff. There's so many variables that can impact ketone levels throughout the day. I will throw on a CGM on occasion and just kind of see how things are affecting that. I've also learned that the longer you are in a ketogenic state or fat adapted, the lower your baseline ketones are going to show. And the first time before I learned that, I was really bummed out because I had been keto for 7, 8 years and I did some finger pokes and I was showing like 0.3, 0.5. And I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? I'm not in ketosis apparently. And come to find out, there was a podcast that had just recently been launched, and I think it was Benazati. I forget who he was interviewing, but they were talking about ketone levels. And the longer you're in a ketogenic lifestyle, the more efficiently your body will produce and utilize ketone bodies. So they may or may not show very high on any of the analytics or the metrics. And now I don't really test anymore because I just know there's not really any point. If you're not eating carbs, your body's making ketones. And if you feel decent and you have the energy to go throughout the day and work out without carbs, something internally is working. So there's no sense trying to chase it. But
Yep,
yeah.
I agree 1,000%. That's really important for people to realize that, yeah, it's great, I think, initially, because a lot of times we think we're doing keto right, and we don't realize how some of those keto treats, like Atkins, they use
Mm.
maltitol, that'll kick you out of ketosis so fast, you know? And even sometimes things that you might think are very keto friendly, but you consume them. I remember in my first phase of keto years ago, zucchini, I tried to do zucchini pasta, and that kicked me out of ketosis for 2 days straight. I think
Wow.
yeah, I think it's the seeds, the anti-nutrients in that. was stressing me out, internal stress. Cortisol goes up, and that raises your blood sugar, and it interferes with ketone production.
Interesting. Good to know. I never would have thought. You think that all these things are keto friendly and sometimes they're not.
I was shocked. If I was not testing diligently and knowing that there is no other factor on the planet that could kick me out of ketosis except this recent change that I made, which buying the zucchini, trying to making zucchini noodles, I wouldn't have figured this one out.
So that's a great example of when to test for a reason. Yeah,
To
because you're
change
testing. Yep,
your
yep.
usual meal plan. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. One more thing about reverse dieting. How long does it take you to reverse diet out?
Great question. Reverse dieting is so overlooked and undervalued by so many people, competitors, non-competitors, and it's so important because if you're in a caloric deficit for too long and you want to grow or I guess climb back out of that deficit, you have to do it in a very structured, gradual way. Reverse dieting out of a competition prep, I would say it's probably going to take 4 to 6 months after I'm in my deficit for my competitions. The slower the better, usually, just because you want your metabolism to slowly climb up with you instead of you just going right back into a huge caloric surplus. And one of the things that a lot of competitors, myself included previously, was we thought the competition was the finish line, and we have to add several months off after that competition date to that timeline, and that's your official finish line. When you climb back out of that and you complete your reverse diet and you're back in a maintenance level. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say 4 to 6 months is probably a good rule of thumb. It might be shorter for some people, might be longer for some people. It depends on how much of a deficit you're in, depends on how much you're weighing, all that kind of stuff.
Perfect. Yes. And two more questions before I let you go. We talked a little bit about seasonal affective disorder before we started hitting record. So I do want to kind of gain a little bit of an insight about your mental health transformation. And then I want to see if you can share a little bit more about your goals for competition and where do you
Sure.
see that going.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in northern Minnesota and we had all 4 seasons. And winter was one of the seasons. It was one of the brutal seasons, and it could be 30 degrees below zero, it could be blizzardy, crazy wind chills, snowing, and we don't see a lot of sun. There's a lot of cloudiness, a lot of gray skies, shorter days, and it would affect us definitely from that area. And it was a very common thing, and everybody kind of understood that it was seasonal affective disorder. Um, so a lot of people would go tanning, or they would try to get vitamin D in another way, and just try to mimic the sunlight. And it can be debilitating. You feel a little bit depressed. You feel like there's nothing fun to do outside. It's just kind of overwhelming. So if you don't recognize that, you think that you're just kind of out of your zone. But now that I've relocated to Northwest Arkansas, we're going to see, because right now it's kind of sunny and 55 degrees out, and back home in Minnesota, it's 10 degrees out and cloudy. So hoping that this is a nice change of pace.
I hope so too. Yeah. I had the same exact experience, and I bought the lamps, the sun lamps, and
Okay, sure.
right, and you would do like 10 to 20 minutes of those, and I think they helped. And that was even when I was in Miami. I still would try to do that, but then again, I guess it wasn't seasonal affective disorder because it was always summer in Miami. I think that was because I was so depressed during my dissertation because it just took so long. Then my professor would go on like month-long vacations, and I would just be waiting around, and I just needed to finish. So, but anyway, that's fantastic for that. Now let's talk a little bit about your goals for competing. You're gonna start prepping in January.
Yes, so I will be implementing a ketogenic prep protocol this time around. I've done it 2 other times with great success, and I'm shooting for some bodybuilding competitions in the end of July,
Mm,
potentially in August, and then also several in September.
right.
So we'll start macro adjustments in January, and those will just tweak every single week. We'll just drop those macros, play with those macros. Usually we manipulate fat and protein. Carbs are going to stay low all the way throughout at 20 grams or less.
Hmm.
And my goal is to just bring a better package to stage than I did last time.
20 grams net or 20 grams total? How do you count your carbs?
20 grams total, give or take a couple. If it ends up being, 25 total and 20 net or less, that's totally fine. I'm not a huge fan of these super high carb, super low net carb foods where it's keto bread, keto noodles, keto
Doesn't work.
pasta, all these kind of things they're just adding a bunch of fiber and filler in there so they can net carb it down.
Yes.
That's not part of the equation. That's not you're leaving some progress on the table when you do that.
1000%. And it depends on your gut bacteria. Some people's microbiome, they will break down all of the fibers. They can actually extract even more calories from those things that supposedly you're not supposed to be able to break down. And then they will convert it into energy and you will absorb it. And that's going to affect your blood sugars. You're going to affect everything. So there's so much that goes into it. And I think just if people don't believe us, just go ahead and try it. Try it with just the math, and then try it with the quality of the food and
Mhm.
eliminating all the processed stuff and even the fibrous stuff, and you will notice a massive change.
Absolutely. And going back to that progress over perfection thing,
Hmm.
I tell people this all the time. If you're hooked on having pasta every single night and you find some keto or lower carb pasta and you're using that new stuff to replace your old stuff, that's a great stepping stone, but don't lean into that forever. I would say work through that and try to reduce that as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I did all the substitutions for a while,
Hmm.
and then eventually just it's still like it works for a while, and I think it allows your body to keto adapt, and you're making all these changes and you lose the taste and you forget the taste of real carbs and real pasta. So that's great. But eventually, a lot of people end up with gut issues and IBS and whatever. We all, I feel like most of us eventually, like maybe this carnivore is just the easiest. You feel your best. Your skin is the best. Everything.
Everything. I even notice better vision with a ketogenic or carnivore approach. It's
Wow.
crazy. It's crazy to describe to people who don't really experience it, but even like vision, mental cognition, I mean, everything.
Things that we don't even correlate to diet. I've heard so many stories like that. It just nothing surprises me anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
What are your goals in terms of like, do you want to take the competition road to the max, or like, like what are you looking forward to in what you're doing?
Ah, gosh, I never really considered how far that journey is going to take me. I'm just going to jump on and see where it goes. One of the things that motivates me the most and inspires me the most is the people who tell me that they're huge fans of my journey or the things that I do, despite people saying that it's not doable. It's probably one of the biggest driving factors is you
Hmm.
can't build muscle without carbs. You can't compete without carbs. You're never going to do this. You're never going to do that. And I just love continuing to do that and help others, inspire others. That's the biggest part of my journey that I enjoy the most is other people.
I know I said I only had two questions, but I
Bring
think you know me better by now.
them
One more
on.
question. Do you feel to get massive success in life, whether it's fitness and health or career or ideally everything, do you feel that you need to have a chip on your shoulder? Is it a prerequisite? Is it a requirement?
What do you mean by chip on my shoulder?
Like having something to prove.
Oh, um, prove to yourself. Yeah, I think so. If you want to succeed with anything, I think you need something internally driving you. Some reason, something to wake up for, something to push you, and just being successful and being better, progressing in life. Otherwise, you just get stagnant and you stand still.
See, in my experience personally, I feel like that's what drives me. Like I have so much to prove because of the childhood and all that kind of stuff, right? And it's like the
Sure.
more you go through, um, uh, hard situations, the more it angers me. and and the more I use that anger as free energy, it's like free fuel that I can then take it and I convert it into drive and ambition. But I'm always this is so fascinating to me, but because not everybody has that, sometimes life was good and it wasn't that bad, but now you're stuck in this situation where it wasn't too terrible, it was fine, you know and but you can do so
Mm.
much more. But because you're fine and maybe even life is good, what can you use to kind of trick your brain, or actually make it so that you feel like your back's against the wall all the time, so that you are leveraging 100% of your potential?
I think you have to find something that you really, really enjoy, something that's really passionate in your heart and soul, and just grab onto it. That's like there's no substitute for that. Before I moved to Northwest Arkansas, I was in real estate for 13 years.
Hmm.
I owned my own real estate home inspection business for 8 years, and it was great. It was a great job. It was great income. It was very flexible. I was my own boss, paid my own hours, but it was not connected to my passion. My passion was always kind of on the back burner, helping people, nutrition coaching, going keto, training people, helping people get in shape, improve their lives, all that good stuff. And until this year, I was just kind of hovering in that weird in between state. And I shut down my business, sold my house, moved 900 miles, and jumped both feet full in 100% into this passion and into these things that really fueled my fire. And I think until you find that, or if you do find that, that's a sign that's what you need to chase. That's where you're going to be your best.
Wow, so beautiful. That's the number one thing I'm really working on with my clients. It's like they come to me thinking it's just a diet and exercise meal plan. It's like this is not, this is like 0.1%, because it's
Mm-hmm.
easiest to tell you what to eat and make those adjustments. It's it's the mental aspects, the mindset. It's trying to figure out what is their passion, what is their intuition telling. A lot of people aren't even connected to their intuition. It's like I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where a lot of the work goes, connecting to that. And but then right away it's like all the limiting beliefs. Oh, but that's not realistic. I mean, and then all the work you do to destroy those limiting beliefs with the real data, with showing case study after case study after case study of people who did things that were considered even more unrealistic than what we're trying to do here. Um, but yeah, it scares people, I think, which is again, I'm not doing a very good job here, of like this stuff that connects with people more. I really need to do a better job of sticking to the things that people want to hear, and then over time you push them through the stages that they need to go through to reach the deep end of it, the real secret for
Yeah.
transformation.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's buried down beneath several other layers.
Yes. Anyway, Greg, this was amazing. I am so grateful that you shared your story with us. You gave everybody so much motivation, so much inspiration, especially around this time where I think a lot of people are going to fall off track. No matter how much content we put out, they're going to fall off track. I can guarantee you that, at least 99% of the people. And I get it. I understand having a hard time, setting boundaries, the people pleasing, just the environment around you, all of the addictive foods everywhere, and all the stuff that goes into why people fall off track around the holidays. And so hopefully in a day or two, they will be fed up with eating all the pies and stuff and be
Hmm.
like, why? Why yet another year am I still doing this? But I think if they're watching this, and if they're watching this till the end, that's a rare breed right there. And so I think those are the people that are going to have the highest uh, potential a real
Yep.
transformation. So that then maybe later on we can talk to them and have an interview with them as well.
Absolutely. Yep. We
Right?
all started somewhere, right?
All of us, 1000%. And that's so much more exciting than the person who is just born a genetic freak. Like, it's like, great. Okay. It's like,
Yeah.
we want to hear the stories of transformation. We want to hear about the hero journey, right? The struggle and then overcoming that struggle. There's something that it gives me the chills. I just seek out those stories. I'm obsessed with this kind of stuff. I love the transformation. What does it take? How do you go from point A to point C, having to go through all the middle stage, all of the ugly part, and how do you do that as painlessly as possible if we can, you
Agreed. Yep.
know?
That's the magic right there.
Yep, yep. Greg, again, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you and your journey and your courage to do everything that you're doing. Um, if you have any last minute advice or anything you would like to say, and also where can people find you and connect with you and work with you?
Sure. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It was a great conversation. So nice to meet you. And if you want to seek me out, I'm most active on Instagram at KetoGreg80, 80. And if I were to give one last little tidbit of information or advice to anybody who's trying to improve themselves, just set small goals. Just set a small goal for something that you feel is attainable and achievable. And when you can consistently hit that goal or beat that goal, add another small goal and simply just little stair steps, one at a time, one at a time. And eventually you'll look back on it and realize you made a big change.
That is so powerful right there. The number one thing people can do is create a vision board because I find it very difficult to think that somebody who needs to hear this is watching till the end. The people who need to hear this message the most aren't even clicking on those kinds of videos. But maybe you can use that to help your friends and family members, push them to at least create a vision board, because humans are motivated by two things, pain and pleasure. And if their life isn't, they haven't hit rock bottom and they're in that the worst place, which is like you're good, it's not too bad, you
Hmm.
know it's not so bad to the point where it's like, oh, I have to change, which is where a lot of people are stuck. Then you can't use pain as a motivator. So you have to use pleasure. You have to increase their pull forces. What's the best way to increase your pull forces? Visualize something that you could have. Visualize, let's say, this healthy body. Visualize financial freedom. Visualize the ability to retire your family and friends and be able to help your community, because there's so much suffering around. Imagine how much good you can do in this world, right? And it can be that, and it can be something more like the car or whatever. It doesn't have to be so deep all the time. Eventually, we naturally gravitate into the deeper stuff because I feel like I think humans are innately good and they want it. It just makes us feel
Hmm.
good to do more good around us. But if you're not there yet, don't feel guilty like, oh, I'm not being motivated by helping my community. It's fine. Maybe you're just motivated about getting abs, and that's good. That works too. So create that vision board or visualize it. Visualize what it would feel like, what it would look like, and uh, and then you just leave it there. And every day you wake up and you see that, and it's really step number one, which is why Arnold Schwarzenegger bases pretty much most of his messaging on having a vision, because he understands to reach everybody, this is where you connect with them. That's where they're at. And if you just push them that first small step, that will start a
Yes.
domino effect that will end up in, we're limitless, in my opinion. There's no limit to what you can achieve.
While you were just describing that vision board, you just triggered a buried memory from my brain. I remember 10 plus years ago having I would cut out people out of magazines that I felt were in shape and healthy, and I would cut them out and stick them on my refrigerator. And I totally spaced that out until just now when you were talking about that. And I remember flipping through all like the health and fitness, men's fitness, all these magazines, and the people that I wanted to look like or feel like, I would cut them out and I would put them on my fridge. Every time I walked towards my fridge to get something to eat, that was staring at my face. Yep. Crazy. I just remembered that. That is pretty
Yep.
wild.
Yeah, I wake up, I do my visualization. I go to sleep, I do my visualization. It is the reason why I can do so many things, given especially where I started. Like it took a lot of me, to do so many changes. And without visualization, because the moment things start getting hard, you start seeing the obstacle in front of you, it means you've taken your eyes away from the reward and the prize. And visualization makes sure you never forget why you're doing it,
Hmm.
because that should be far more powerful as a motivator than the obstacle in front of you.
Yep. And those little pictures of those guys with great physiques were staring at me every day, all day, every time I walk in the kitchen. Yep. I remember that now. Yeah. It's very repetitive. Yeah. Yep. Cool.
There you go.
Yep.
This stuff works. Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. I will make sure that I post the link to your Instagram account right under this YouTube video so people can click on it and follow you, connect with you very easily. Happy holidays to everybody. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas, Greg. I am so glad we got to connect, and I'm sure this is not going to be the last time that we chat or collaborate on something. So thank you, and thank you, everyone, especially the rare ones who have stuck with us till the end. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell icon. And more importantly, if you can share it with somebody that you feel is a little bit ready or maybe very ready, and that can be a good kind of refresher of the just how to make change in your life, whether it's fitness or even I think a lot of the stuff we talked about applies to career as well and relationships. It's the same mindset, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, thank you everybody, and we will see you in the next one.
Thank you so much.